So tonight's agenda does have some updates regarding school opening in September and some of the considerations that are on the agenda in terms of health and safety. Some conversations we're going to have about school opening guidance that is lacking from the State Education Department, the Department of Health, and the Governor's Office, but we know we have to move forward with our planning for the fall, as we have talked about quite a bit in our board meetings all summer. So with that, I will turn it over to the superintendent on the update.
Thank you, Mr. Buno. At this point, we are preparing for the opening in September, and I will say without reservation that all of our children will be attending school full-time. They'll be offered in-person learning every day, and all of the classes, courses that we typically offer will be offered. We have been in the process of reviewing a very fluid situation that has occurred since the end of the spring, where we were all very optimistic that with a little bit more time, COVID-19 and its impact on the schools would be in the rearview mirror. Unfortunately, that is not the case, and the concerns as we approach September involve the infection rate spread, which was at once 0.3 in Rensselaer County, is now 4.4. And in addition to that, as we listen to the same information that all of our citizens listen to regarding the rate of spread associated with the Delta variant, it is significantly easier to catch. Additionally, over the last few days, in conversations with the superintendents of the other districts in the region and with Questar, BOCES, and the departments of health, they are seeing increased cases of COVID-19 in children. Additionally, there are a number of cases that have occurred where someone has contracted COVID who has been fully vaccinated. So all these things have changed the circumstances, but not the hope for September. We do need to put in protocols that will ensure that our students are safe. And those protocols will maintain our ability as a district to offer in-person learning. Some of the guidance has changed. Additionally, we were very surprised and somewhat blindsided by the New York State Department of Health's decision really only a week ago or so, that they were not going to issue their state guidance, which they already had prepared. Based on the information that we received through the state, they had guidance prepared for schools and chose not to release it. So our Commissioner of Education has stepped in, and she has communicated to the Department of Health that she felt that the Department of Health, despite the suspension of the executive orders of the governor, was still responsible for issuing guidance. New York State has reiterated that the Department of Health at this point was not planning to release any guidance. So now we've heard from the Commissioner of Education again that she is working on, at the State Education Department, guidance for the schools, and we would expect to receive that guidance hopefully early next week. We're not waiting for the guidance to do our planning. We have been planning since the spring. And in fact, I have been in the process of working with the other superintendents within the Questar BOCES, Dr. Cruz, Craig Hansen from Questar BOCES, to develop a regional plan. And there are regional work groups that occur both within our region, our BOCES, but also outside among the 4 BOCES in our area who are developing plans. Right now, the only basis for those plans that we have are the CDC guidelines. And the CDC, what I want to do right now is kind of run through each of the area of the CDC guidelines that we believe, unless the State Education Department comes out with something different, which we don't believe that they will, we will have what we think we will have to have in place for September. And to start, I want to just reiterate that the goal is having the children in our classrooms 5 days a week, learning as normal with the extra supports that the board has supported for academic learning loss, for mental health, for technology support, for engagement, and extra activities that are funded through our federal programs to support the children's successful transition back to school. Our county, Rensselaer County, has indicated to us, different than Columbia and Greene County, that they will not be sending us any written guidance. And that position was reiterated to me yesterday by County Executive Steve McLaughlin. The county will continue to collaborate with us, to provide input, to review our ideas, but we won't be expecting any guidance from our county. So we have to rely on what the state education department tells us and CDC. Under the CDC guidance, all of the counties in New York State are considered to be at high risk of transmission. Just a few weeks ago, we were at a moderate risk of transmission. And when schools are located in regions that are of high risk transmission, masks are required of all students and staff. As a parent, as a community member, we were hoping for a different opening. However, under the CDC guidance, that is what's required right now. That does not mean that down the road, as we handle whatever occurs with the Delta variant, that the infection rate might decline to a level where CDC might make an adjustment to that requirement, or our state might step in and make. But for now, I think our parents should anticipate that the children will have to wear masks, whether they're vaccinated or whether they're unvaccinated. And our staff will have to wear masks, whether they're vaccinated or unvaccinated. There is no distinction made in the CDC guidelines because of the community transmission level. On transportation and our buses, CDC guidance has been adjusted as we've learned more about COVID-19 and more people are becoming vaccinated within our communities. We can have as many children who need to ride the bus on the bus. There are no social distancing restrictions for students on a bus. We are required to make sure that the windows and the roof hatches are open, which we did last year, that appropriate ventilation is provided as the students are riding the bus. And we will have to continue the cleaning and disinfecting practices on a daily basis that were put into place, along with other mitigation, including making sure that we're doing all the things that we've been doing, washing our hands, distancing where possible, and being very conscientious. So we're not concerned that students will not be able to ride the bus. They can ride the bus, and in some cases, in some schools where the traffic was quite difficult with parent drop-off last year, we encourage parents to have their children on the bus. We believe it is safe. Physical distancing. You remember last year that we were limited in our ability to have all of our children in all of our classrooms because the social distancing or physical distancing requirement was 6 feet. We lobbied the state to adopt the CDC change of 3 feet. That has occurred, and all of the guidance indicates that in our classrooms, 3 feet physical distancing is recommended. The guidance goes on to say that if schools are not able to provide in-person instruction for all students, they have to just do the best that they can. We have looked at our classrooms in K through 12. We will be able to adhere to that standard of 3 feet or more, depending on the classroom. So all of our children will fit in our classrooms every day with that parameter. Remember last year we brought to the board a recommendation of the music department. Music department was operating under constraints of 12 feet for band or chorus. In some cases, they were not able to do ensembles because of the limitations of space, not being able to get the whole performance group into those spaces. We are now able to have that 6 feet standard, not 12, for band and chorus. Strings instrument doesn't matter. because we're not concerned when students are playing the violin or the cello of the aerosol spread related to COVID-19. Physical education remains at 6 feet. Additionally, we have had some conversations about screening for symptoms. Okay, if you recall, throughout last year, there was an app or a paper form that we asked parents to ensure that students and all of our employees completed to screen for symptoms related to COVID-19. Now we have a situation where all of our children are coming every day, and that doubles the volume of work that everyone would have to do to check whether or not those screenings were done by all of the students. So the language of the CDC guidance does not require schools to do a screening and a temperature check. In fact, the state regulations last year said that the parents were responsible for screening their children for symptoms, and please don't send your child to school if your child has any one of those symptoms. What we think will work for our district, and we just finished this discussion today with our total administrative team this afternoon, is we would continue to send reminders and encourage the parents to screen their children, and we would still do the temperature checks in our schools. The handheld temperature checks at the elementary school level really didn't work all that well over time. So Linda has recommended that we use some of the balance of the federal money to buy more of those thermal scanners for the elementary school. And we asked the principals to submit their request. So we would still screen for temperatures as kids are coming into the school, and we would rely on the parents to do the symptom check at home.
Jeff, is the temperature check required?
No.
It's not? Okay.
It
So
just
an
says it's a
additional
general screen for symptoms.
Okay.
Daily screening checks is the language. And we feel that we're actually going a little bit above and beyond with the temperature checks in the schools. Cafeteria. The capacity of the cafeterias under the guidance last year of maintaining sufficient physical distancing for kids to be able to eat. We can't have kids sitting at tables together. For example, at Goff Middle School, we can't do what we traditionally have done, 6 to 8 students sitting around a round table and eating their lunch. The CDC guidance says appropriate physical distancing in cafeterias and eating areas to provide necessary meals to all students. Right? Basically to distance as much as you can to enable all of your students to be able to eat lunch. Encourage hand washing and hand sanitizing before and after meals, limiting mask removal for only while those children are eating, and cleaning and disinfecting between table use. All of those strategies will be part of our plan. And talking with the principals at the high school, the middle school, and the elementary school. At the elementary school level, a minimum of 3 feet will be maintained between the children. There may be more depending on the size of the cafeteria. And all of the kids will be sitting individually still as they did last year and facing the same way. We may adjust that over time, again, if the community transmission rate goes down. At the middle school, they need to set up the cafeteria to see what the occupancy would be. We envision some of those 3x3 tables that are used for testing at the high school being brought over to provide that type of seating. And we also envision the kids sitting the same way, facing the same way. We may have to use the gymnasium, at least a third, if not half of the gymnasium at the middle school as another station for lunch. We're still examining that. And we will be cleaning and disinfecting.
You think there may
Guidance is more flexible than it has been in the past.
Do you think that we need for any of the outdoor tenting?
Linda has been working on that. I'll let Linda comment on the tents because we had an arrangement to get the tents, but we're not sure we need them.
Okay.
Yeah, actually,
To back
we
up.
had 2 tents. We have them still on reserve.
Okay.
One for at DPS and one for at the middle school. However, in speaking with the building principals, they're feeling that they're not going to need
Okay,
those
good.
tents. I do have them on reserve until the point that we have to make a decision
Sure.
without losing money.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
This is a draft document that I'm reading from. It's subject to change. We're still working on it. So I didn't publicize it, but I will be publicizing it and making it available for the board and the community, but it's changing by the day as we work on it together.
Okay.
And so I'm reading from the draft document that the Questar BOCES and the superintendents in this region are putting together. CDC guidance on food service says maximize physical distance as much as possible when moving through the food service line and while eating, especially indoors. Consider utilizing other spaces when available to facilitate lunch, such as gyms, outdoor seating. We learned a lot about COVID. There's a lot lower risk associated with potential COVID spread through surface contact. The CDC language points that out. It does say that there is no need to limit food service approaches to single-use items or packaged meals. We were doing that last year. So that'll give more options for the kids. Clean the surfaces frequently, promote hand washing between shifts, make sure there's appropriate ventilation. We did a ventilation study last year. We do a program called it's a purge of fresh air into the school by opening up all the dampers, running the motors on the unit ventilators, and bringing more fresh air, and we'll continue that program. So we think we're in good shape for lunch. Next one is contact tracing. The county has indicated to us that, as they did last year, they will provide us with the language regarding how the contact tracing will work for all of the schools. There's a lot of confusion right now in schools as to what the process would be to determine whether or not a student or a staff member in our schools is considered to be a contact with someone who was positive for COVID-19. And it's because of the distinctions between people who may come in contact who are vaccinated or unvaccinated. We're not sure what the rule is going to be right now. CDC says that students in classrooms are exempt from being identified as a close contact, even if they are within 3 feet of a person who's identified with COVID-19, as long as they have a proper fitted mask. So another reason that I will recommend a plan right now, unless the state education department guidance conflicts with CDC, another good reason to wear a mask, at least for the beginning of the year, is you may not be subject to a quarantine. And remember, we had lots of students quarantined last year, lots of kids out, and we want kids in classrooms learning. So that's a good thing. When I know more about I'm expecting that by Monday or so, we will know what the contact tracing rules are going to be. Additionally, I want to talk a little bit about cleaning and disinfecting. The CDC guidance indicates that thorough cleaning and disinfecting should continue. However, different from the State Department of Health regulations last year, which required or recommended cleaning in between groups of students, the new CDC guidance indicates that it is sufficient to clean and disinfect surfaces once daily. So in order to facilitate a full schedule of classes and make sure that instructional time is maximized, the 39 to 40 minutes that kids are in the middle school and high school schedule, we will be permitting teachers to clean the desks in between groups should they want to, but we will not be requiring it. If you can imagine a group of 25 kids coming in and another group of 25 kids going out, and we want to get to class. Last year we had half the desks empty. As a practical matter, it's just not going to work. So, and it's not required. So that was a big concern last year. It's less likely that COVID-19 would be spread through a student touching a desk. Not saying it couldn't happen, but CDC says clean and disinfect once a day. As far as remote instruction, the state education department has indicated that they will not require districts to offer remote instruction. However, school districts will be required to ensure that remote instruction occurs for students who are identified as medically at risk of serious illness related to potential to get COVID-19. So we envision a very small number of students who are eligible through a process that we are creating for a remote learning option. We will not be I will recommend not offering a full choice. I have spoken to both our attorney and we have contacted Dr. Albert. We are going to create an application. Dr. Albert will weigh in on what that application should include, as will our attorney. We hope to have that application available next week. Parents can send in that application, and similar to what we do with other types of medically related accommodations for students, we will ask our medical director to review those applications, and we will make arrangements through Questar BOCES for those students to receive a remote program that has been put together by Questar BOCES. Both Capital Region, NARIC, and Questar have a model. We feel very confident in the Questar approach that's been put together. They need to know approximately how many children would be provided this option around August 23rd. One thing we want to make clear, if the board supports this idea, is that that remote option will not be staffed by East Greenbush teachers. There'll be teachers hired by Questar. That remote option will offer the same K through 5, K through 6 curriculum that's based on New York State standards, but you may not get all of the courses in the program of study that we traditionally offer at Columbia High School. You will get the courses that are necessary to receive a Regents diploma, but we can't staff some of the specialized courses that we have, for example, in art and music and other electives. They just can't do that. It'll be a distance learning model at the 7th through 12th grade. So we have distance learning now. We've had that in place. We have a distance learning lab here. But students will be able to stream into the course from their computer at home, and that course will be being taught by a teacher, and there'll be students from all of the districts in Questar participating in that class. We think it's a good option. It's an affordable option. It still provides the students that really qualify. But we also want to make sure that our students that get transitioned back into our classrooms, and that there's an expectation that the large majority of our students are here in class every day, engaged in class every day, participating in extracurricular activities, and doing really well. A lot of things happened, as we've talked about, kids disengaging, mental health concerns, understandably, fear of COVID-19. We want to get back, despite the current challenges, back to a level of engagement with our kids. And we think that the way to do that is to really emphasize in-person learning, but also protect those students that are most vulnerable to COVID-19 or families that are most vulnerable to COVID-19 through this process. The process isn't established yet, but we've been having discussions this week.
Just a comment, Jeff, on that. I know that through our end of school year last year, a lot of students came back full-time who had some learning needs. We ran a full special ed program, both last year, full in-person, 4 days a week. And we also ran a full summer school, which was terrific, and had much success with that, which ends this week, Melanie? Yes. Okay. So it's encouraging to hear that, those kinds of things. Would the commitment to be a remote in this application process, if you know the answer yet, have to be a commitment for the full year? Could a child come back into the program?
I'm not certain of that. I know with the NARIC program, which is the Northeast Regional Information Center, you had to make a commitment for the whole year. It's something we have to talk about with Questar.
Okay, very good.
The other topic that I want to talk about is athletics. Okay. This Board of Education, myself as a superintendent and as a parent, we're very strong supporters of interscholastic athletics. We want to see the kids out on the fields and on the courts. We want to see a traditional season, fall, winter, and spring. And right now, the New York State Public High School Athletic Association, Section 2, they were kind of operating on an expectation that we were going to have a normal fall. CDC guidance indicates that when schools are located in a high transmission level, the high-risk sports should only take place if all of the students who participate are fully vaccinated. We don't believe at this point that we have the authority as a school district under New York State regulations to exclude children from extracurricular activities based on their vaccination status. So we have sent that question to the Commissioner of Education. Nor do we have the authority to require students and or staff right now to be vaccinated. So that presents a problem right now for our district with volleyball, girls volleyball, and football. And we want to get further guidance to reconcile that. We are waiting for more information on that, but that's what the CDC guidance. And one of the concerns we've talked about as superintendents is, and maybe the state education department guidance will address it. I'm hoping that it does. If we choose to follow the CDC guidance, we choose to follow the CDC guidance. We can't pick and choose the sections of the CDC guidance that we like and the sections that we think are problematic. We want to be able to follow the CDC guidance as a whole. Again, this is all being done in the absence of the New York State Department of Health, giving us regulations that are more black and white and easier to follow. So this is an open problem, just sharing it with all of you. We don't believe that we should be put in a position to exclude anyone from anything based on vaccination status unless regulations indicate that we should. We can promote vaccination, and we know there's lots of different viewpoints about that. We can ask families to consult with their doctors on the whole choice of vaccination, but it's a tough position to be put in as a school district to be able to say, you can't play football this year when you've been looking forward to it unless you go get vaccinated. And that's what this CDC guidance says regarding high-risk sports.
And
Brought
that's-
that issue of concern. We had a regular scheduled meeting with Senator Breslin and Assemblyman McDonald. They meet with us every summer, Rensselaer County superintendents. We met with them down in our guidance conference room today. We made them aware of that. And the commissioner has been made aware of that. So I'm
And that's
not
only-
saying that we're going to exclude anybody. I'm just saying that that's a dilemma for the district right now.
And that's if you're in that zone of
Yes.
high risk under the chart there.
Yes. Testing. CDC recommends that schools engage in surveillance testing. The county, Rensselaer County, has received $3.89 million. Columbia County has received $1.5 million, and Greene County $1.2 million in what's called ELC grant funds. Craig Hansen from Questar has been working with each of the county Department of Health to put together a proposal for surveillance testing. That proposal would involve each of the schools in Rensselaer County to have the testing machines and the testing materials to do rapid COVID-19 testing. That is something that the school districts are still discussing. We don't have a lot of information on that. Additionally, Questar would hire, through the use of some of the county monies, some staff to assist with the testing. So we don't know how it would be done, who would do it, and how frequently it would be done. And we may be revisiting this with the board in terms of, going forward with a testing program. It is one of the layered mitigation strategies that is identified by CDC. And we've been put in a good position to be able to do it because of the federal grant funds that have flown to our county. We don't really know the particulars of how it's going to work. We're actually having a meeting with all the county departments of health, superintendents in each of the counties, and Questar on Monday to flush out logistically how this would work, so we could try to be as consistent as possible in our proposals.
Just
And we're
quick,
going to have some conversations with the nurses.
quick question on that. So last year we did the athletics. It required a consent. Is the recommendation talk about students and staff?
CDC guidance says unvaccinated students and staff.
Unvaccinated. Okay.
Yeah. Again,
We don't know.
we have access to the vaccination status of our students through the same system that the nurses use to verify that the required vaccinations are done. We only have, we are permitted to ask the vaccination status of our employees, but right now it's unclear as whether we could require them to give it to us. So we're talking with the unions a little bit about surveying staff again.
Okay.
The teachers union has indicated support for testing. And with some questions about how it would work. One of the advantages of doing testing in the school is keeping the kids in the classroom.
Yep.
Providing assurances to the community that your programs and your mitigation strategies are working. There's another type of testing called point of care testing. Last year, we had a lot of students miss school because they had symptoms of COVID-19, and it turned out they didn't have COVID-19. But they had to wait for an appointment with a doctor, they had to get an alternative diagnosis, and then they had to wait to get released to come back to school. Under this plan, we could do point of care testing. Students could go down to the nurse and say, I've got runny nose, I got a headache. We would isolate that student, do the test. We'd get the results back in 15 minutes, and we'd know whether or not they were positive for COVID-19. It would keep kids in class. And I think it's an idea worth considering, particularly since the resources and the money are going to be provided to us. Logistically, we're not sure how it would work yet. We're having more discussions of it. Okay. So those are our plans at this point. We did not publicize our plans on our website because of the shifting that has occurred just in the last 2 weeks. Again, we were expecting the State Department of Health to come out with regulations. They did not. New York State Education Department was as surprised as any school board or superintendent that that didn't happen. We didn't want to release anything only to find out that we had to change and continue to confuse and complicate what is already a very difficult issue to deal with as we approach another school year and the rate of infection is going up. So we do have plans, and part of our planning process does involve collaborating regionally, sharing this information with the board, getting the board to weigh in, having opportunities for the public to weigh in. We are planning some public meetings once we know a little bit more about what might transpire in the State Education Department regulations. But we feel prepared, and we will be prepared, and we will keep the kids and the staff safe, and they will be coming into class every day this September. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Simons. Any questions from Mr. Simons, board members? No?
Well said. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a very comprehensive review of where the CDC falls and the other, issue with the change in leadership at the state level, at the governor's office. Maybe we can see some more activity in terms of DOH and governor working with SED to help guide us if they choose to go directly with the CDC and the Pediatric Association recommendations, and then make any adjustments based on the field's comments. So thank you very much, Mr. Simons.